Howdy friends, music lovers, Wes here back with another episode of The Vinyl Survivor. This is where I take 5 albums, give them a listen, let you know what I thought of them. So let's go ahead and get into this. First thing we have here is a find I had at, I think it was at the Salvation Army. This was way back in the 90s when I was first starting to collect, and I've had this forever. Kept it with me. It's been through a flood with me, so the box itself is not in the best of shape, but I just couldn't bring myself to throw this one out. I did throw a bunch of albums out at one point because somebody's waterbed leaked and destroyed a bunch of my albums, but this is one of the ones that I just couldn't bring myself to get rid of. This is actually a radio station copy of American Top 40 with Casey Kasem from January 13th, 1973. So what would happen is that every week they would, press up these, this is basically record the radio show, press it on vinyl, and ship it out to radio stations all across the country and maybe even overseas at some point. This is the way things were distributed. They didn't have ISDN lines and internet and stuff where they could just transfer files back and forth, and so this is how they did it. They pressed it on vinyl and it would be shipped to the radio station, and the DJ would play the sides for a couple hours on a Saturday or whenever the American Top 40 show was on, and this is how it was done. And the radio stations were directed to destroy these after the show was over. But luckily, a lot of them survived. A lot of them were saved. I believe there's people out there that actually collect these American Top 40 radio shows. This was the first one I had ever seen, just digging. And as I said, I picked this up in the 90s sometime, and I haven't seen one since. So I don't know how rare these are. I know there are people that collect these. It's not something I've sought out to find more of, but it's an interesting piece to listen to. So you get the whole entire radio show on 3 LPs, and it's just really neat to hear, Casey Kasem's little interludes and little information on each of the songs. So this is a really cool piece in my collection, something I will keep for a while. I don't see myself ever getting rid of this. So you do get a printed sheet that describes all the different sides and tracks and where the breaks were for commercials and news and the typical radio station type things. So it's all laid out in a schedule here of the show, and the DJ would follow along and play the show in its entirety. So if anyone is curious, the number 1 song for January 13th, 1973 is You're So Vain by Carly Simon. There's what a label looks like for one of these American Top 40 custom labels. And as you see, this is 1A. So typically radio stations would have 2 or 3 turntables to where they could, instantly fade between songs and whatnot. So you got 1A here, and then you get 1B here, so they would go ahead and queue up 1B, so when 1A was done they could immediately switch over to 1B, and it just flows through that way. Yeah, just a really neat historic piece that's in my collection. Really cool. I certainly would buy one of these again if I found more when I was out digging. Like I said, it's not something I particularly seek out. A really cool piece in my collection, and I've really enjoyed having this over the years, and every once in a while it's just fun to just put this on and revisit January 13th, 1973. Really interesting piece. So this one is, it's been in my collection for a while now, and it's not going anywhere, so that one is a good one. Okay, the next thing we have here is a comedy album from Flip Wilson. This is just titled The Flip Wilson Show with special guest David Frost. There's Flip there. And this was, I guess, a TV show that he did back in I'm guessing the 70s at some time, early 70s. And this is more of just like the audio from the TV show, so I think it loses a little bit in translation being put on record. I bought this because I like comedy albums, and I thought this gatefold was pretty neat, and the cover itself has some embossing on it. Pretty cool. Just has this Flip logo on it embossed all around the cover, and it's on Little David Records, which I believe that's George Carlin's his own label that he started. I'm not completely sure. I know he was on Little David, but I think it was actually his label. Vinyl itself, this is some of the thinnest vinyl I've ever seen. This can give a Dynaflex a run for its money for thinness. This is paper thin here. But it's just a recording of a TV show, and it doesn't have the greatest sound. I mean, it's a TV show from the 70s. The sound quality wasn't great to begin with. So the Flip Wilson show is not going to be staying in the collection. As I said, it was an interesting piece to listen to. I had a little bit of trouble following along just because it's audio from a TV show, and I think it lost a little bit in translation. So maybe if you saw the show and then you wanted to have this as a keepsake, something, maybe it would be better for you. But just by itself, it didn't work for me. So interesting piece, but not staying in the collection. Next up, we have the U.S. debut from Everything But the Girl. This is self-titled from 1984. Everything But the Girl consisted of Tracy Thorn and Ben Watt. She sings, he does keyboards and percussion and stuff like that. Does some singing as well. I didn't really know much about Everything But the Girl other than their single from the 90s that was remixed and became big, titled Missing. Missing You Like the Desert Missed the Rain. I'm sure you remember that song. Very, very prevalent at the time, and I just hadn't really listened to them much, so I thought I would pick this up. I picked this up at the library sale for $0.25. It was yellow. It was 25 cents at the library sale one year. They're not that cheap anymore there. Yeah, overall, this didn't do anything for me. The musicianship on it just sounds very dated, very cheesy, very almost loungy at times. Just not that interesting musically, and as I've said in the past, if you don't grab me with the music, I'm not going to listen to the lyrics. So this just really didn't do anything for me. It was interesting to listen to. It was worth $0.25 to hear, but I'm not going to be keeping this one. And this is on Sire Records. Also has a sub-label of Blanco y Negro. It has K-Disc PB and the Dead Wax. That's Phil Brown, I believe, is who does the mastering on this. I'm looking at a message board post from him right now, where he says he is not the UK Phil Brown. He was an American engineer that worked at K-Disc, and his name is Phil Brown as well. So I'm guessing he's the one who did this. And it also has SRC in the Dead Wax, so it's Pressed Specialty Records Corp. So yeah, that's Everything But the Girl. Vocal, jazzy, loungy, almost sounding to my ears anyway. That's what I got from it. And as I said, it was really tough for me to follow along with this one. I really didn't do much for me. Okay, this next album I have to talk about is something that really surprised me how much I disliked it. I'm still fighting myself to even not like this one. I just don't like it. It drives me nuts. This is David Bowie's Tonight from 1984 is when this was released. I love the album artwork. I love his previous album to this was called Let's Dance. Really enjoyed that album, and this one I just don't. For the most part, I don't like this album at all. He tries to do some reggae songs on here. Overall, it's slower, less inspired feeling to me. Not very good, either musically or lyrically, to my ears. Reminds me of some of the slower songs from his new album, like the debut single from David Bowie's new album is something I still am not that huge of a fan of. He does a cover of God Only Knows, it's just bad. I mean, he didn't need to do that at all. The inner sleeve. Once again, I love the artwork on this album. I don't like the music at all. This is on EMI America. And we have Master Disc RL in the Dead Wax. So Robert Ludwig mastered this record, and even he couldn't save it. So if it's an RL and I still don't like it, then it's no fault but David Bowie's as far as how bad this is, in my opinion. So yeah, I think even he has come back and admitted that this album was not his best work. It was kind of rushed, and surprisingly, I'm not going to be keeping this one. I really thought I would be one of those people that over time collects as many David Bowie albums as possible, but I don't really see myself wanting to listen to this ever. So it's not going in the collection. So yeah, surprisingly, David Bowie didn't make the cut on this one. Okay, so the last album we have to talk about, gonna save myself a little bit today. This is why I do this. This is why I explore albums in the way I do, and why I buy things that I have no clue what they are, is for things like this. And this is Joan Armatrading's debut album, Whatever's for Us, from 1972. And this is just freaking amazing album. I mean, mind-blowingly good. It doesn't sound like it's from 1972. This could be from 1982, it could be from 1992, it could be from 2002, it could be from 2012. It's just that good, that timeless. The songs are beautiful, her piano playing is amazing, her voice is strong, just wow. I mean, I can see why she's had such a long career if this is her debut album. This is something that needs to be heard more. I had never heard of this before. I mean, Joan Armatrading is one of those musicians that you hear about, but you don't really know much about. She just, for some reason, doesn't have the same following that, say, a Carole King Tapestry would. I think this is better than Tapestry, in my opinion. It's just an incredible album. I love it to death. Gatefold with lyrics there, handwritten, very nice. It's on the A&M sort of gold and white label, pretty standard there. So yeah, that's Joan Armatrading's Whatever's for Us debut album from 1972. If you like singer-songwriter stuff at all, you owe it to yourself to hear this if you haven't heard it yet. This is a classic in my opinion. This is the reason I do all this, and this is a prize of my collection now to have this. Really love this album. So I thank you for watching another episode of the Vinyl Survivor. 2 additions to the collection, 3 that just didn't quite make it, but were interesting to hear nonetheless. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe if you aren't already, and you will be kept up to date with future episodes. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again soon. Cheers.